Whew. So today or last night, my right arm hurts. My back shoulder blade, instead of on this side like it was last week, it is on this side. And remember, the knots in my under my shoulder blades were there back in my 20s when I would be in certain positions, leaning over something like bad posture or bad ergonomics. And so I developed knots underneath my shoulder blades, of which now are finally being worked out through the frequencies and my own immune system and the food I'm eating. So I went to Starbucks yesterday, got like 4 shots of coffee. I still have leftover because it was just so much. And I went shopping for food. So I was in the grocery store for, it wasn't that crowded, but it was around 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So there were people there, but they weren't super overly whatever. So anyways, but I'm sure I breathed in the air, talked to people, and everyone is releasing their antibiotics. And so your body's going to have to upgrade. Now, this morning, I was blowing out a bunch of stuff. My dog was up early at 4 in the morning, just feeling really anxious. I know the frequencies are insane, but also me bringing home stuff to force her to deal with stuff. And so what is the stuff that she's dealing with? Well, she also has tumors and other things, I don't say tumors, but scar tissue and maybe tiny little tumors that are in her body that are working itself out, that needs to be worked out and processed and then released through mucus, released through coughing, sneezing. Sometimes she'll get seizures. That's an energy release, okay? And that has to happen. If you stop that energy from happening, it will destroy a person and an animal from the inside. That's why people die, is they self-implode, okay? So she was going through all of that, but she didn't have any seizures last night. Or this morning, she was just kind of anxious, and she was up early, and she had to pee, but it took her a minute to go down the stairs because she has to get her faculties figured out. It takes her a minute to get everything all under, relative equilibrium. So, but then last night, we also had steak. We had macaroni and cheese. We had the spinach. Steak, now I see, does take longer to process because it has a bunch of stuff in it that your body is like, oh my gosh, this is like an amazing. So it keeps it in your body. It's not coming out the next morning. I notice that when I eat other foods, not steak, that they come out relatively easy unless I'm going through some kind of upgrade, like major upgrade. But I had steak last night and only a little bit of stuff came out, but not a whole lot, which is fine. I mean, if my body needs to hold on to those really condensed nutrients to go in and do what it has to do, I'm going to let it do it. I'm not going to force it out. So I'll drink, some rest of my coffee and milk and all of that, but I'm not going to try to force it out. But I noticed a difference with steak versus other foods. Okay. And then, of course, I belong to a group called Died Suddenly or something like that. And it's actually a pretty good group. You have to understand that there's a lot going on, and it's very hard to make correlation equals causation to any specific thing. That's why there's so many different antibiotics out there and so many different therapies that are all based on the same premise: antibiotic, anti-life. When you attack something like life, it will have a reaction, develop a resistance, but also an upset of homeostasis. That's called sickness. And so with the amount of diverse antibiotics that are out there in the medical and holistic system, it's just a matter of at what point do all the little viral babies develop as the protection antibodies from the antibiotics. It's a matter of time when they all decide to organize and, have that event, whatever it is. And some people have a lot more substance to their body. And so if there is an event, it's not reverberating across the universe in the body, right? It's staying kind of in its chemical contained area. You might feel a pain. If you feel a pain, you're like, I'm going to go take another antibiotic to compound the issue, to stop the energy. But then now you created another faction, another religion, another culture. Every antibiotic develops another culture. That's the diversity. That's why there is a diversity sign on my Facebook, because right now we're in the age of diversity. We're in the age of diversity. We have so many different types of cultures, ethnicities, sexual orientation, belief systems, lifestyles. And we can't discriminate. Like you can't talk smack about the V's. You can't talk smack about this and say it's poison, it's poison, it's poison, because by itself it's not poison. But when it's brought together with other antibiotics and they're working in concert together, then you could say, okay, now instead of saying one specific antibiotic or one specific methodology is bad, now you got to say all of antibiotics. But then a person who is discerning or not discerning would not think that a V is antibiotic, would not think that they're tinctures from the holistic person to antibiotic. And so then it goes into perception. But that's the thing. It's going to take an educated person who's going to take in that information and realize that everything they've ever done in the medical holistic system, when it comes to a remedy, stopping the pain, is dealing with antibiotics. And that is what's developing that diversity in our society. That's diversity. That is the RAINBOW symbol. That's the allegory. We're living in allegory right now, and the symbols are right in front of your face. The fact that they're doing the Pasteur Act, which is both collectively 31 members of the Democrats and 31 members of the Republicans in America. I don't even know what's going on in England. They have their own stuff in England and the UK and all that stuff. But in America, they're going to pass that Pasteur Act, which means that they're going to develop stronger antibiotics, because there's drug-resistant antibiotics like the viruses, the parasites, the protozoa, the proteins, the fungus, and bacteria. They don't want to freaking die, so they're assimilating and defending against that, and assimilating, and adapting, and evolving. And so what does our leaders do in both sides, Democrat, Republican? They're going to vote in for a stronger antibiotic. Stronger antibiotic, okay? Do you get it now? Now that you get where the root cause is antibiotics, now they're telling you, oh, we need a stronger antibiotic. We got to make the aging process much healthier, whatever the fuck that is. Okay, what they're trying to say is that we have so many people with so many diverse antibiotics in their body, and they get hit by another one, the body goes into major upset, and they go into aggressive decline. They don't die, but go into aggressive decline, and they're requiring somebody to look after them. They're requiring oncology. They're requiring operations. They're requiring agencies to assist them. They're requiring round-the-clock care, taxing the system. And so now, am I advocating for that? Because you know how I've been saying that we have a lot of redundancy in the population, a lot of people who are major deficits, they're taxing everything. I'm not for or against any of it. You just have to know what's going on, and you're going to have to make your own choices. You're going to have to make your own choices. It's not for me to say it's good or bad, because let me tell you, when I'm getting rid of the crap in my body that is life, but I'm not attacking it with antibiotics, but I'm blowing my nose, I'm pooping, I'm drinking a bunch of milk, develop an army for myself to release the demons. You know, those demons that don't want to leave, they're going to say, I'm a bitch and I'm this and I'm that. But there's more of me than there is of the antibodies in my body. If I was full of antibodies, I'd be dead. Because antibodies means anti-life. I don't care what kind of life it is. Antibody is anti-life. And so when I posted about capsaicin antibodies, and then capsaicin, which is basically a cayenne pepper, and it's from like jalapenos and red peppers and all those different nightshades. They're really, really light nightshades like tomatoes. So I don't want you guys to get all up in arms about nightshades, but there's really strong nightshades that are very aggressive, highly alkaline alkaloid that then will be used as therapies against cancer. Well, your body's going to build up defenses against that. When you have cancer and you're using something like capsaicin to go and attack the life as an anti-inflammatory, well, your body's going to build a defense system that will attack you. Then you have to bring in an anti-capsaicin antibody, monoclonal antibody, that will go in and do a secondary type of attack. That gets too numerous. Then you got to go bring another drug in to attack that. And that's the endless antibiotic loop that we're have been in for forever since Imhotep. Ever since Imhotep, even before that, because Imhotep didn't learn this shit on his own. He learned from somebody. Who he learned it from in 2600 BCE, I have no idea. But we have done this before. This whole rise and fall of civilizations and parasites and protozoa and all this allegory stuff that we're reading in the Bible, in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and in all the poems like Dante and all that stuff, this shit's been done before in some other place or even on this earth. Because when you're getting floods and mud floods and people reinventing the wheel literally, and then it gets covered up by another mud flood and then more reinventing the wheel. Can you imagine how many freaking wheels under each thousands and thousands of layers of strata, different kinds of wheels that are in Earth, all the way down to the core, if you can get to the core. I mean, that's the world that we live in, is we keep reinventing the fucking wheel. Well, now the New World Order is saying, okay, we're not going to keep reinventing the wheel. At some point, we're going to scale down the population to 500 million. And then on the way down, it's going to be chaotic. You're going to be zombie apocalypse. I mean, there's pictures of San Francisco homeless that are fighting each other, which I took pictures when I was in San Francisco back in the 2000s or 1990s, of people fighting in the Mission District, on is it International Avenue, or it was in on Mission Avenue, and they were fighting. I was like, oh my God, the people fighting. And I was taking pictures, so I was like, oh my God, I wasn't used to this. And then, somebody else somewhere else is like on so many drugs and they look like they're contorting like a zombie, like you watched on the Zombie Apocalypse or Walking Dead. And yeah, with these frequencies, I mean, when you have 80% of the US therapized with all types of different therapies, regardless, I don't care what they are, now it's all herd IMMUNITY. You know what herd IMMUNITY is when you're taking on somebody else's therapy, you're not really releasing it because you don't have a strong immune system. It burrows in your body, replicates, and then now you're assimilating to the person who's been therapized. So no, you don't necessarily have to take a therapy not to feel the effects of it. But when you do take a therapy that is coming from the outside from somebody who is getting it, intravenously done, then you're getting the direct effect from it and go through its own stuff. But then you also be a carrier. You'll be spewing out all that stuff. So those that have been therapized, bless your heart, you didn't know any better. And I'm not going to hold it against you because you're up against a powerful freaking cult called the medical holistic system. But now you have to know that this is your part in it. And we're not mad at you. Again, we're not mad at you. You don't know any better. And you will not know any better. Not until it's too late. It already is too late. So many people have not been conditioned to deal with symptoms. Their only reaction to symptoms is to stop the energy. They don't know how to express it and feed it and maybe change their lifestyle and their belief systems so they don't have to die from their exposure to the heavy antibiotics that are in your atmosphere. That's why it's so thick outside. When you think about how thick it is out there in the clouds because of the CERN and the HARP and the storms, that's holding so much antibiotic material. But it's your environment. It's not something that you can develop a therapy against. You can't develop a therapy against your environment. That's stupid. That's like, I don't know what the hell that is. And so you have to adapt to it. But if you already have predisposed issues, you have a lot of anomalies in your genetic line. And then there's energy frequencies, because we're in the high climate, extreme climate, that's going to bring up energy in your body. And so, yeah, while I'm feeling, like a dull ache in my shoulder, a dull ache in my back, my dog's feeling the energy. The other day, her ears were hot. And I noticed that that's where when her body is releasing stuff, it's coming out of her mouth because you hear her cough, right? It's coming out of her vag and her back end, like her pooping and peeing and then the mucus. But also her ears. Her ears also get the life that the OTIC, it's like a bacteria. It's like a candida bacteria, but but stuff that I have to dig out with my fingers gently to get that stuff out so it's not, totally torturing her. And I do a little bit of salt water just to kind of help just clean it out lightly. But when she does go through those energetic sequences, her ears feel hot. And then she shakes her head because, or she puts her head in the couch and it looks cute, but she is dealing with the energy that her body is releasing. And when it's releasing, it's heating up the path on its way out the door. And so then her orifices are hot. But the mass under her carriage, under her belly is changing and it's being pushed out. But remember, it's a progressive thing. It's not something that's like instantaneous, spontaneous. It's a progressive thing. And so are you guys. You're going to have to deal with a progressive release of all the crap that you've ever taken in the medical holistic system. You're going to have to feed your body. You're going to have to really feed your body, and you're going to have to deal with the bloating, the gas. You're going to have to deal with constipation. You can't be taking stuff to force the poop out. That if you understand your fingers and your alimentary canal and you train your body to cough stuff out, to work stuff out, you might have a chance. And I'll tell you, some people are way on the other end where they're way emaciated. They're taking all their antibiotics, and the programming in their body is already, have them in deficit because they're really emaciated. They came into this world really skinny, like super skinny. And so when they're around their friends and family and they're eating and they're not releasing at the level that they need to in an organic, natural way, which is, bringing in a bunch of food like milk, skinny people need to be drinking vast amounts of milk. Oh yeah, it's going to be painful. It'll be bloating. You'll be pooping out a bunch of stuff. You'll be taking on fat. You'll have to eat. You have to eat everything. People who are really skinny in this environment have to eat so much to make up for what is missing. And it's painful to bring pressure on, and it's painful to release pressure. And so on the other end of it, those who are obese, taking in antibiotics and hanging out with their friends and family and the environment, they're steadily getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where they have to go get gastric bypass or some kind of surgery. Because the antibodies that were programmed, that's they're in their, not only in their immune system, but also in their environment, are causing then miscommunication to where then they are taking on substance, cortisol, fatty acids, their water retention. And of course, with all of that is then a cacophony, a constellation of symptoms and issues and diseases. So when you're taking in antibiotics, it's going to compound the trajectory that you're on. Those that are holding the line that look relatively balanced, and I say relative because I'll tell you, in our society, being super skinny and having a six-pack is like healthy, but really they're actually starving. But you never tell them that because they wouldn't think that they're starving. They're not hungry. They look like, the models on TV, like Hollywood, who's suffering right now. But I'll tell you, when you're holding the line, okay, and let's say you're on the JJ world, you're holding the line a little bit, but you still have to fluctuate. When you're in the JJ world, you have to fluctuate. You saw the fluctuation that I went through. I mean, you saw I looked like I was gaining a bunch of weight, and my face was bloated, and I was angry, and the demons were like screaming out of my mouth, my ears, my nose, my mouth, and I was like cocking out loogies. I mean, I was going through exorcisms on fucking Facebook where even my old trolls that I've blocked that found a way to come through my business page are like, oh God, you look awful, Jillian. You look like you're unhealthy. You look this. How can you say that your protocol is this, and this? And I'm just like, if they only knew, if they only fucking knew. And there's no way for me to explain that to them. But that's the thing. So when you're in the JJ world, you will be going through major fucking fluctuations. If you are cured and you're holding your looks and your beauty and all of your whatever, whether you're obese or really emaciated, or you look like, Cindy Crawford with all the makeup and the six-pack, if you're holding that for such a long time and you're not feeling this aggressive atmosphere, it will be just a matter of time before that beast, that monster, those demons inside of you are going to get organized. And when it hits, that beast will hit so fucking hard, people don't survive it. And so that died suddenly group is the outcome when people let their beast get so out of control because they want to be cured, they want to get all their therapies, they want to get, do all their diets and their workout regimes and all that stuff. And then their next of kin, or those that survived their events from when they were therapized, they're on there going like, holy shit, I will never do it again. But that's not enough. See, the thing is, it's a great group to see the outcome and see a pattern of the type of symptoms, like that, the hives. When I saw a picture of that person's hives, I'm like, that's exactly what I went through. Those were all over my front. Not that I could show you on freaking Facebook, but right there. That was exactly what I dealt with. Did I have it inside of me, or did I catch it from, somebody's therapy because they had the antibodies that was attacking the COVID? You'll never know. There's no way to make that correlation equals causation. So all these delayed reaction therapies are really strategic. They're the creepers. These delayed reaction therapies are the creepers in our society, and they creep in, they creep out, they lay waste, and they also lay nests. And then when they do go off, and it could be like, days later, or it could be years later, you don't know, because it's all about predisposed issues. You will not make that connection. But even then, if you made that connection, you were still around people who have been therapized. Even those that don't, that take on someone else's therapy and then mutated the different strains. And so there's no way to trace back where it all originated from, because it was started off when you were born and your parents gave you a bunch of antibiotics, and that metastasized, and then it mutated from all the different therapies, and then even more so with this environment. And so if you want to bring it all the way back, bring it all the way back to fucking Imhotep, 2600 BC. If you want to blame someone, don't blame the medical holistic system, because there's people in there that went to college or were taught by professors who taught by professors before them, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of generations back, that goes all back to thousands of years. So then you go back to Imhotep, and even before Imhotep, because who taught Imhotep? Well, he's not around, and you don't know who he is. Okay? So then you're like, fuck. So there's no one really to blame, but the knowledge now is what you need to take on, the knowledge and redirecting. Because let me tell you, blaming anything is really pointless. It's counterproductive, and it ain't going to help you or anyone else. But you take on this knowledge and you express the energy, and you survive the different symptoms that are expressing, and then you somehow find a way to intelligently impart that upon your audience without scaring the shit out of them. And that takes an art. Okay? Because let me tell you, nobody wants to feel the energy. That's why they're doing all this stuff. That's why the Pasteur Act is going to develop the strongest antibiotic, where some people will rest in peace. And some people will have crazy symptoms that they may not last very long for them to tax the system. So when you have an antibiotic that's so strong and it debilitates you, so you get diagnosis, but then maybe after your diagnosis, 2 or 3 days later, you're gone. How can I die from lupus? I just got diagnosed 5 weeks ago, and how can I? Because they don't want to have to deal with someone with lupus for fucking years. Oh, I just got diagnosed with cancer and all these treatments. And of course, they're not surviving their, their therapy. Some are, but some aren't. But you're going to see the shortened suffering with the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. But it doesn't mean that you're going to live through it. It means that when you shorten the suffering through all these diseases, it's going to mean there's a strong antibiotic that's going to take your ass out. You got to understand, when you stop suffering at a most aggressive level, that's called rest in peace. When you calm the suffering down, but there's still a little bit of suffering. This morning I woke up at 4 in the morning because my dog, my husband, and because he's going fishing this morning, his alarm found its way into my mind and woke my ass up. So I'm waking up to beep, beep, beep. And then my dog wakes up, and then she's pacing around and going, that's suffering right there. Is it really suffering? Oh God, you got to wake up by an alarm clock when your dog pacing around. But that's what I'm saying. That suffering is all relative. Extreme suffering is going to be gone because it'll be rest in peace. They're not going to allow you to suffer for as long as you've been suffering with carrying these diseases, where you're on drugs and other types of stuff, and then you're acting out and having schizophrenic reactions or bipolar disorder stuff or anger. Oh no, the extreme suffering that we've been dealing with for the last how many years, it's going to be gone. They're going to develop some strong antibiotics. So while they're developing those strong antibiotics against the weak population, those that are in the JJ world that have understood that you have to feel this stuff, we're going to feel it. We're going to feel it in different ways, whether it's hawking out loogies or still dealing with residual, deficits that we have. We're going to feel it. Though the strong antibiotics will be strong on those that are really weak, and so they'll be gone, and the strong antibiotics on the relatively strong will be a mild cold. That's why you get people who are reacting to the COVID and characterizing it as a mild cold, because they have a strong body. But someone who has deficits or has a bunch of antibodies like mycoplasma like I had, I was like, holy shit, that freaking hit me like a ton of bricks. Now, my husband, he took NyQuil. I didn't take NyQuil. Did that shorten his thing, or did he just have that in him where he didn't have what I had, the pneumonia? But anytime you take NyQuil or any of those over-the-counter drugs, you just brought in another religion. another faction, another culture. Or you fed the existing one inside because you taken NyQuil before. That's why you're doing it. But every antibiotic is another culture. That's the diversity. Okay? And so I get diversity. I mean, I'm not like knocking it. I mean, it's right in your face. It's in plain sight. Everything that's going on is in plain sight. They're telling you exactly what they're doing, but how you perceive it is what is their psychological operations. They have controlled your perceptions for fucking years. For years, they've controlled your parents' perceptions on antibiotics, oncology, and sickness. And so strong antibiotics equals drug-resistant superbugs. Oh, they're gonna eradicate the superbugs. They're gonna eradicate. Well, how do you eradicate a superbug? Is that only manifests in a human? That's right. If you're suffering from a superbug, oh yeah, they'll be the strongest antibiotic, and you'll rest in peace. And so antibiotics in a body that is obese will take on the person, make the person more obese. Okay, so you saw that right. I'm not gonna read all this. But 3 indicators of imbalance: aging, obesity, and emaciation. And so, yeah, you could be aging and being like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm running marathons. I'm working on my novel. I'm doing this, and they're aging. But that's a sign of imbalance. You know that at some point, the devil's going to take his due. It's just a matter of when. Just because you are developing Facebook, or you're writing your latest, textbook, or you're doing this or doing that, but you're aging, doesn't mean that you have a huge future ahead of you. It's just a matter of time in this environment when Mother Nature takes her due. And so obesity is the same thing. Emaciation is the same thing. All of those, aging, obesity, emaciation, is a sign of imbalance. You'll be fooled by those in California until the environment and their body can't hide behind the Botox and the plastic surgery. But I'll tell you, when you bring in the youth, right? The youth, they look like they're healthy. That's why they're worshiping youth and worshiping children, because they are the ones they are the gods and goddesses that sell whatever the system wants them to sell. And so if they're selling you an MLM, a pill, a powder, supplement, detox, an outfit and haircut, protocols, and they look like, someone on TV that just came into Hollywood, fresh-faced from, the middle of America. Someone like on Vanderpump Rules, right? Some little fresh-faced girl from Kentucky that's going to be used as a tool to sell the masses all this crazy-ass shit. That's how they're able to control people, is through the hormones, through youth and vitality, or what you perceive as youth and vitality. That's how we've been fooled by the modeling industry. Okay, selling you all the DRUGSs everywhere. Oh, it's actually extremely organized. Extremely organized. It's like, your child who's like 15 or 16 years old, they are like doing amazing in school, and parents are thrusting their kids are so successful out in front for everyone to go in and consume. And so this kid now is now in a jail, and it has to now perform and be successful. If not, then they're going to make the family name look bad if they don't stay within the lines of that expectation. That's why it's so dangerous to totally give your kid accolades around their schoolwork or around their future, because then when they see everyone expecting them to stay in that specific trajectory, then they feel trapped. And that can also be dangerous, because maybe that's not what they want to do. Maybe they want to do something else. But it's really about the parents that are living through their children, that are actually destroying their own children. And so completely just saying, oh, my kid is so wonderful, which is great, I understand it, but then you're also jailing them. So there's that fine line where, okay, yeah, your kid has talents, but this is not the only thing. There's so much more out there. And so always just to make sure that your kid knows that they don't have to be the success and be that mover and shaker, that if they want to be more behind the scenes doing whatever, and they're happy with it, and they don't want to hear so many accolades all over Facebook or everywhere else, respect that. But you know how that is with parents. They can't help but be prideful and be proud because they made this. But parents, if you want to be proud of something, be proud of yourself. What are you doing that makes the world better? Why are you living through your child? That's why children get destroyed by the parents, because the parents haven't made it, and so they're using their kid as a fucking tool, as a representation of them. When really, parent, you are a representation of yourself. Your child is its own entity. All right? So anyways. All right, I said that already. So the Pasteur Act is going to be horrible. Horrible, horrible. I mean, pasteurized milk is destroying the life in the milk. When raw milk has live active cultures, which is fine. I mean, here's the thing. When we were doing the GEEZUS, right, and we're talking about GEEZUS and freezing it, and we're like, oh, you shouldn't freeze it because you're going to freeze the thing, blah, blah, blah. You know, okay, so you freeze the GEEZUS, you put it in the freezer, okay, so it freezes. Well, then when you sit it out on the counter for, you know, like in a hot day, that organic material inside from the cabbage and the kale, it'll thaw out, and then it'll keep repopulating. It'll come back to life. New bacteria will develop from that. You haven't killed it. The only way you can kill something is like a probiotic is if you add like a bunch of antibiotics, if you add a bunch of mercury. That's how you destroy a probiotic, is if you add a very aggressive element like jalapenos, like cayenne pepper, like a bunch of cinnamon, like a bunch of black pepper. Okay? So you can't hurt a probiotic like jelly juice or anything, you know, like yogurt. I mean, you can stop the replication and you can do the whole pasteurization process, but you know, you leave milk out for however long, you know, in a closed environment, it gets warm and then it ferments. It's stinky, right? You're like, oh my God, that milk's gone bad. It's not gone bad. It's just brought life, and life, you know, when the methane, when it releases its waste, it's stinky, just like you. So when I'm drinking milk, whether it's pasteurized or not, this is where you have to have a strong belly that already has so much bacteria that can convert that milk into a live active culture inside your body. Okay, so I could drink, that's why people get lactose intolerance, because that life is replicated inside. But when you're taking so many antibiotics, okay, so many antibiotics, and so you destroyed your gut bacteria and you're drinking milk, what's that milk doing for you? Or it's developing so much of even if you're not taking a bunch of antibiotics, and say that you're not, but then you have a crappy release process, like you're too afraid to poop a lot, you're too afraid to blow your nose, you're too afraid to cough, and so you're drinking a bunch of milk and all that, and that milk then adds the weight gain. That's the other side of it. And so you must have an open system in this environment. If you do not have an open system in this environment, you will self-implode, or the little bugs inside of you will eat you out from the inside. And so it's a law of thermodynamics. The first law, energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted. Second law, oh shit, this is where it's been a while since I've done the three laws. The second law, I don't know if I have it here, is, I forget, but the third law is where, you know, in a closed system, an entity cannot survive in a dynamic environment. But I should go over the second law. Hold on. Second law of thermodynamics. Oh yeah, energy is, yeah. Oh, that's right. That's the same. Yeah, it is. Okay. Energy. Okay. Oh, that's right. Entropy. The second law of thermodynamics states that energy is transferred or transformed. Now more it was wasted. So the more the energy is transferred and transformed, that's entropy. That's wasted material. Okay. It's been a while. Okay, so the first law is energy cannot be created or destroyed. The second law is entropy, and when energy is converted all the time, it loses energy. Okay, it loses substance. And of course, in a dynamic environment, closed systems do not survive. And humans right now, in the medical holistic system, are exhibiting closed systems, and we're dealing with entropy. Negentropy is when you're adding substance to your body, but to what extent? I mean, you can have excessive negentropy and someone's obese. Excessive entropy, someone's emaciated. Someone who's holding the line is either youthful, or they're getting, you know, they're youthful, or they're getting plastic surgery and they have enough, you know, or they're getting, you know, injections, fat injections and stuff, because, you know, that happens too. In Hollywood, or you're getting, you know, all the plastic surgeons doing that stuff. And so again, you will not know the truth in New York or San Francisco, LA. because of so much of the false deceptive images and the plastic surgery. You'll know the truth of who's healthy when you go to middle America where they don't have all that crap. The surgeries and the plastic surgeries and all that, the makeup. Well, they have makeup, but you don't have the real aggressive plastic surgeries like you see in New York and San Francisco and LA, Chicago, or other places. Okay, but when you go into a Midwest town somewhere, you're seeing the truth of what is going on in people's bodies. And it's insane. Now, I'm sure in England, you have your places where you can kind of see the truth. You know, there's a higher echelon in England, and maybe that's around Windsor and stuff. I don't know, the king and the queen. I wonder if royalty ever goes through plastic surgery. I wonder what their whole medical regimes are. That would be very interesting to know what they go through. Not that they would ever say anything. But anyway, so yeah, developing a therapy with a delayed reaction for most of the population, yeah, it's quite difficult to prove correlation equals causation. And that is all by design, and there's plenty of things to blame, believe me. Okay, and you know, herd immunity is the shedding. And then it's watching so when you get everybody all therapized and they have stuff incubating inside of them and then you turn the frequencies up and down because of weather and the climate changes up and down, that's when you see, like, back when I was really sick, so was Biden. Biden was sick. He had a false positive or whatever, so he had to be quarantined. My husband was sick. I was sick. So many people were sick at the same time. Why is that? Because the frequencies are what is the catalyst. See, that's what you're now realizing is the frequencies go up and down, and then you don't even know it. But you'll know it when you feel stuff. Or even more so on certain days. All right, so that's all I'm going to say for right now. I'm going to do my work and drink my café. That's Cantonese for coffee. I took, for about 2 weeks, a Cantonese class before I went to China back in 2003. And I'm like, I'm not learning another language. There's no fucking way. I didn't even take Spanish, so I'm not going to learn Cantonese in, like, you know, a semester. All right, bye.